Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are reacting to day number 10. Yes, finally at day number 10, technically practice number 9 for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a good one, and it wasn't just good because what happened on the field. It's good because what happened off the field yesterday was arguably the best practice of training camp so far. Definitely the longest. Certainly felt that way. A lot of back and forth, highlights on defense, highlights on offense, interior offensive line work, some interior defensive line work. Brock Purdy had the deep ball working today. A lot of really good stuff. An overall great practice. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan and Nick Sorensen are leaving the practice field today pretty happy with what they saw from their team. But first, I want to congratulate Patrick Willis being enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this morning. If you haven't been on Twitter or on social media, go on there after you watch the show, and you can see Patrick Willis's bust of his face, and you can see his Hall of Fame induction speech. I can't think of a more deserving person. A relatively short career, but he was great every single season. Didn't have a bad game, it felt like, and I don't think it's a stretch to say is the greatest linebacker in San Francisco 49ers history, and is finally being acknowledged as that, not just by the team, but by the entire Pro Football Hall of Fame. Awesome to see plenty of Niners that were there. Jim Harbaugh, Delaney Walker, Vernon Davis, Frank Gore, Jimmy Ward was there, Moran Norris, former fullback in San Francisco, amongst many others. A great sight to see. Navarro Bowman was there. Essentially, the entire Chargers coaching staff was there because it's the Harbaugh-era Niners all over again out at LAC. But a great thing for Patrick Willis. I want to say congratulations to him off the bat here, because I cannot think again. I can go back to where I was when he was drafted. I was playing Little League Baseball for the Pirates in Pittsburgh, California in the East Bay. My brother walks up to the dugout and says, "Hey, Niners pick Patrick Willis, linebacker out of Ole Miss in the first round." And I was like, who's that guy? And now it's like, if you don't know, you better go find out who Patrick Willis is, because he is now a Hall of Fame linebacker. Moving on to what happened at practice, a couple absences is how we always usually start the show. So Trent Williams still holding out. Brandon Ayuk still holding in. Ayuk did watch practice for a short time near the weight room, but again, no updates on either one of their behalfs. Although Jeremy Fowler of ESPN did say that the longer this thing plays itself out, the longer Ayuk holds out, or I guess holds in, if you will. Maybe the calls San Francisco is getting about trading Brandon Ayuk, I wonder if those become more enticing. So no real updates, but something to look out for if things progress the way they are. Injury news: Isaac Guerendo, Jacob Cowing, Tay Martin, and Logan Thomas all did not practice today because of hamstring injuries. Cam Latu didn't practice today, but did some work on the side in shorts. Offensive lineman Pat Elfine didn't practice today. He was signed yesterday, got hurt yesterday, didn't practice today because of an ankle injury. Spencer Burford did some more work on the side as he works through a broken hand. Curtis Robinson didn't practice today with an undisclosed injury, did work on the side, while Darrell Luter Jr. and punter Mitch Wishnowsky did not practice today, and we're not sure exactly what happened with either one of those two players. Wide receiver Malik Turner limped off the field after catching a deep ball and did not return, so not sure what happened with Malik Turner, but I'm sure updates will come. Hopefully he's back to practice tomorrow. Players returning from injury: Jauan Jennings came back today, Aaron Banks returned, and Jarrett Kingston came back. Jennings had an ankle injury. I think it cost him 2 days of practice. Aaron Banks had a back injury, cost him 2 days of practice, and Jarrett Kingston missed yesterday's practice with an unknown injury. The O-line rotation today, which I'm pretty sure has the majority of fans wondering what's happening. I think the first team offensive line today, again, no Trent Williams, but left guard was Aaron Banks, center was Jake Brendel, and right guard was Dominick Puni. That is with Jon Feliciano back at practice. Dominick Puni, I think, has gone an entire week of practice days with the first team, and with guys coming back, still is working with the first team. Ben Bartch and Nick Zakelj did rotate in with the first team because San Francisco is taking things on the cautionary side with Aaron Banks and Jake Brendel, as they both work back from injuries. Banks, again, the back injury, and Brendel with the knee tendonitis. So Bartch and Zakelj also getting first-team reps, but Puni not leaving the first team yet. The second team was Nick Zakelj at left guard, Jon Feliciano at center, and Ben Bartch at right guard. Zakelj also got center reps, and Jon Feliciano got right guard reps, with Ben Bartch also playing left guard. Robbie439 says here on YouTube, in reference to Brandon Ayuk, trade him. At this point, he'll probably get injured in 2 weeks into the season because he hasn't had any practice. I like BA, but if he doesn't want to be here, let him go. I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Robbie, and trust me, I totally understand here what you're saying. Niner fans are like, just sign or go somewhere else. There's a collective of the fans that feel the exact same way you do. I will push back and say if Ayuk didn't want to be here, he wouldn't be here. So clearly he wants to be here, just at the right price. Now, what is that price? Is it $30 million? Is it $27.5 million? I'm not sure. But I think if Ayuk didn't want to be here, he wouldn't be here. So I think, well, yes, the longer this thing lingers, the higher increase of injury he has once game time comes. I agree. I think this thing gets done in the next few weeks, hoping sooner than that. But I will push back and say again, if Ayuk didn't want to be here, he would not be here. That's his only play of leverage. Don't show up. You don't want to be here, don't show up. Now, maybe he stops showing up at a certain point, but as of now, he's here and in the building, and I think they're going to get this thing done, fingers crossed, in the next few weeks or so. I think Jeremy Fowler said that he expects Trent Williams' deal to get done before September 1st, and I think Albert Breer said the same thing for Ayuk. So the hope is by at least the end of this month, the insiders are saying both these things should get done. Moving on to the practice field today and our practice takeaways. I want to start with there being an almost fight. We almost had a fight. We had a scuffle, definitely, for sure. Jordan Mason and linebacker Ezekiel Turner got into it. Mason caught a pass from Brandon Allen, was running towards the right sideline. Ezekiel Turner shoved him out of bounds from behind. Mason clearly took exception to that. Bounced back up, ran towards Turner, shoved him from behind. Turner got back up. They exchanged words, but nothing much happened. So an almost fight, but definitely a scuffle. The second one of training camp so far. Earlier it was Kingston and I think T.Y. McGill. Today, Mason and Ezekiel Turner. It's just guys being dudes, tensions run high, your adrenaline's running, you make a play. Turner's not a lock for the roster. Mason's trying to be an RB2, and today Mason had a pretty good day as a pass catcher. Turner, that special teamer, kind of, bubble on the roster spot, linebacker. So there's a bunch of guys playing after the whistle. I wouldn't look too much into it, obviously, but whenever guys come together and you hear the helmets bump and you see a little extracurricular activity after a play, it kind of perks your eyes and you go, what's happening over there? But nothing too much to dive into in regards to that scuffle, if you will. Robbie also says here in regards to Ayuk, does he want to be here or does he want to avoid the fines? I think it's both. I think, whenever you can avoid a fine, it definitely helps not having to lose, what is it, $50,000 every single day you're not there. So, it's definitely a good thing that he's in there. And of course, I'm sure he wants to keep some money. And the more he's there, that more that paycheck comes in, right? So it's not like he's not going to get paid. And yes, they can't fine him. But I also think, again, Ayuk's made enough money to take a little bit of a fine. Now, again, how long does that thing occur? Who knows? But I think it's a little bit of both for sure. It's how can I have my cake and eat it too? But San Francisco's kind of the same way. How can we re-sign one of the ascending receivers that, is inside the NFL's top 100 list now, is going to be in his prime during his next contract with us. But how can we somehow penny pinch him into getting into a contract that we like rather than what he likes? So both parties are trying to have their cake and eat it too, but the leverage, again, is clearly on San Francisco's side. Back to the practice field. What happened with Brock Purdy? Joshua Dobbs saw a little Tanner Mordecai today. Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Conley had himself a day. What happened on the practice field, starting with the franchise himself, Brock Purdy? He was 13 of 18 on the day. He did throw 2 interceptions. Now, interceptions have always been a thin-lined topic. It's very hard to ride that lightning in regards to your opinion on training camp interceptions. I don't look too much into it. Brock Purdy doesn't either. But today was a much more straightforward interception day. It wasn't like the 3 he threw, the 3 or 4 he threw the couple practices ago where he had 7 in back-to-back days. This was a much more straightforward day. The first interception bounced off Ricky Pearsall's hands into Jair Brown's hands. Pearsall maybe slipped or kind of got jammed coming out of his break. He was kind of a little bit lower, wasn't upright coming out of his break, out of his route, excuse me. Purdy threw it a little high, hit off his hands, right into Jair Brown's hands. Whereas the second interception, Purdy tried to force a throw to Deebo Samuel. Didn't see Jair Brown, who was waiting there for it. So if you're counting, Jair Brown caught 2 interceptions today, both off of Brock Purdy. But again, very straightforward because you can look at those 2 things and say, bad. But overall, Brock Purdy was pretty darn good today. Sure, you don't want to force a throw. 1 pick off a receiver's hands. One's your fault, one's not your fault. That said, he had the deep ball working today. And I counted 4 throws of deep ball Brock Purdy stuff. The first one, huge throw. It's already on Twitter. I think the Niners' actual account posted it on there. Throws the ball to Deebo Samuel for a massive gain. Left sideline. Lenore's in tight coverage. Fits it over Lenore right into Deebo Samuel's breadbasket. It was an amazing play. You can see it on Twitter. The next play, Chris Conley has what seems like 5 or 10 yards of space in between him and the receiver behind him. And Purdy throws what would have been a 40-yard touchdown pass, almost 35 air yards. Conley catches it in stride. It was a freaking dime to Chris Conley. And Chris Conley is no turtle. He's a cheetah, if you will. He's a fast man. Chris Conley had himself a day, and Brock Purdy and him connect on a 40-yard touchdown pass. Christian McCaffrey got into the action for a big gain towards the left sideline, I'd say about 15, 20 yards downfield. And I think arguably Brock Purdy's best throw of the day. The Deebo Samuel throw was great. The Chris Conley throw was really good. But Brock Purdy's best throw of the day was a 25-yard back shoulder fade to Jauan Jennings for a big gain with Isaac Yadam in tight coverage for a touchdown. It was excellent. And I think, for everyone who's making these opinions on, you go watch First Things First and Nick Wright is going insane and he's referencing Grant Cohn on Sports Illustrated with the picks and people on Twitter are talking about the interceptions and are they good, are they bad? We need to talk about days like this because this is the growth of Brock Purdy of, I might throw 2 picks and you can make your opinion on are those good or those bad, but overall, Brock Purdy throws 4 deep balls downfield, 2 of them for certain touchdowns, 1 of them for a would-be touchdown. I mean, that's great stuff there. And I think, while mistakes happen, you can see that growth of Brock Purdy's arm strength seemingly looks better this year, which it was fine. It wasn't great. People always knock him for his arm strength, but today it was pretty good. And I think through camp, it's been pretty good so far. It took him a little bit to find that touch and the accuracy, but today he was on point. And I think after yesterday's practice and today's practice, he has found his stride in the kind of middle portions of training camp. They play next Saturday in 1 week's time against Tennessee on Saturday. So I'm sure he's not going to play, but you want to see him build up to that game and have a really good week of practice. And the last 2 days have been just spectacular from Brock Purdy, obviously quarterback number 1, but the quarterback 2 competition rages on behind him. I thought Joshua Dobbs has had a pretty good, 3 or 4 practices in a row. Day did a good job maneuvering around pressure. He found Danny Gray for a deep ball downfield, which is a good thing for Gray and Joshua Dobbs. Also found tight end Jake Tungs after scrambling on a 4th and 1 for a first down and moved the ball drills. And again, threw a touchdown to Danny Gray near the end of practice. So a pretty good day from Joshua Dobbs, an average day for Brandon Allen. And then Tanner Mordecai got some reps. Mordecai, I don't know if we're actually going to see much of him or hear much of him or from him during training camp. I think the preseason games is where he'll kind of make his bread and butter. He's not going to make the team, certainly a practice squad guy. Some might think they're going to trade Dobbs or Allen. I don't think they have that luxury this year like they had last year with Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. They're going to need, I think, their 3 quarterbacks, and they're going to want to keep all 3 of their quarterbacks this year, whereas last year they had a surplus at quarterback, which is shocking in the NFL. But today, Tanner Mordecai was pretty good. He threaded the ball into a very tight window to Trent Taylor. He snagged it, turned upfield, ran for a solid gain, also found Jake Tungs while navigating the pocket and maneuvering through pressure. And I think, people want to find the next Brock Purdy, and I think a lot of people are taking the mistake they made in writing off Brock Purdy and trying to make up for it in Tanner Mordecai. It's not to knock Mordecai at all, because I think there is one aspect of his game that should be talked about and should be commended. He is unafraid. And Brock Purdy had that trait where if I mess up, so what? What do I have to lose? At the time, I'm this team's 4th string quarterback, and it's taking those chances that, make your quarterback trust you more, right? And I think Tanner Mordecai, although a much smaller sample size, and who knows if he'll be great or not, he's unafraid to make plays. And I will see come Saturday against Tennessee how that goes or how much he even plays, but unafraid to force throws into tight windows, make plays with his feet. And while I don't think he makes the roster, I think he is going to be someone to watch and probably surprise us in the first few preseason games, depending on how long he's on the roster. Moving to Elijah Mitchell. Wasn't like a highlight-filled day. He ran hard all day, stiff-armed the you-know-what out of Diamador Lenore today. It was just, it was like bang. It was like, whoa. And Elijah Mitchell, I think, when he runs hard and with aggression, that's what we saw in 2021, where he was this team's leading rusher. And I know he wore down towards the end of the season, but I think, while he's battling for running back number 2, you see him run tougher and harder and throw stiff arms and, take a couple of runs for a nice chunk yardage and have a solid day overall. You want to see Elijah Mitchell with his head down, running tough, and Jordan Mason the same way, albeit a much better day through the air for Jordan Mason. Both those guys, while Mason's a much bigger player, obviously being more of a power back, they run tough. They are a bunch of tough SOBs that when they're fully healthy and you get them finally going, they are going to lower the head and they're going to try to push as hard as they can, even if it's for 1 or 2 yards. These guys want to fight for every single yard. Moving to the receivers, I thought 4 of them had pretty good days. Chris Conley probably had the best day of the 4 I'll mention. Deebo Samuel, 40-yard catch down the field from Brock Purdy, already mentioned it. Pretty good day from Deebo, and overall excellent training camp so far. Him and Lenore kind of tied for the best training camps. Deebo has kind of struggled to separate on deep routes. Today did a better job doing so. I think it helps that Lenore is a smaller cornerback, whereas Isaac Yadam, who he struggled against to separate on deep routes, is a bigger cornerback and kind of a bigger-bodied cornerback than Lenore is. But overall, pretty good day from Deebo. Again, 40-yard catch downfield from Purdy. If that's the only catch you make on the day, and then you run the ball 4 or 5 times for 20 yards, it's a pretty good day for Deebo. That was basically what it was today. Jauan Jennings, again, caught that 25-yard back shoulder fade to Deebo Samuel in the end zone. Really good camp so far from Jennings. I'm not sure if it's the money he got for his extension, but overall, a good day. Ricky Pearsall, did drop a ball, hit his hands, wasn't sure about the route, or if he got bumped off the route or whatever it was, if he slipped, hit his hands, became an interception. But later, from Brock Purdy, caught a nice pass over the middle with a nice yak after the play. So kind of a wishy-washy day, if you will, from Pearsall, but the last few days has really showed off his ability. But you want to see more consistency from the rookie, and you want to see, you want to see those plays where, okay, I made a mistake early. How do I bounce back today? Made a mistake early and he bounced back. So a good day in regards to, I guess you can say, fighting through adversity, if you will, if you want to call it that. But a fine day from Ricky Pearsall. But Chris Conley had himself quite the day. Chris Conley, like Trent Taylor and Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, we've talked about plenty of times already, fighting for that last kind of receiver roster spot with 5 of those guys kind of already penciled in. Chris Conley, I think today, he saw Trent Taylor excel yesterday. Taylor was really good yesterday. Conley said, well, I can do that and even more. And today, he had himself a really solid practice and overall outshined Pearsall, Jennings, and Deebo Samuel. Caught a nice pass over the middle for a nice chunk of yardage. Had a really good block outside to spring Jordan Mason for a few extra yards. So again, no block, no rock. Chris Conley blocked and also got the rock today. Then, of course, caught a 55-yard touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. Again, he had 5 yards of separation from the nearest defensive back. Ball travels 35 yards in the air, hits him in stride. And I think, for a team that's still looking for, I guess you can say the deep man, the speedster, supposed to be Danny Gray. Ayuk's kind of assumed that role, but isn't kind of the defiant guy in that role. You just drafted Cowing, and you have Pearsall here now. So, Chris Conley, although probably isn't going to play much, I think, again, is the most consistent veteran depth piece on the roster. And while Trent Taylor is kind of vying for that job, I think Chris Conley is a clear leader in that room. I think he just has shown more and more and more and more and more throughout the training camp period. I think that, Conley is valuable in so many more areas than Trent Taylor and Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray, whereas, do you want to keep a guy that can do one thing great or a guy that can do 3 or 4 things really well? He's a much more well-rounded talent than Taylor, than Gray, than Bell, and I think that's kind of, that's what separates him. He can be a good receiver for you when guys go down. Special team gunner, he's there. Return man, he's there. Blocker, he's there. He's kind of like State Farm, right? He's got you, right? So, good day from Chris Conley. Leon Sandcastle says, 1 more week until real football. Put that in quotations because not sure if the preseason is actually real. But I get what you're saying. He goes, I'm pumped up to see these young players fight for the roster. I agree. Leon Sandcastle and Khalil Young says, that's why we need BA back. He's our most consistent separator versus man coverage. I agree. But I do think it's good to push Deebo and kind of make him be in that, Brandon Ayuk role on certain routes, because if there is an area Deebo needs to grow in, it's the route running. He's a running back playing receiver, and he does a lot of receiver things extremely well. But a lot of his game is get the ball into his hand and go, right? Deebo, I think, while he isn't old, while he enters the later stage of his career, if you will, nearing his 29 or age 29 season, I think he needs to be able to separate better and push himself. And I'm sure a lot of it is, he's in better shape this year. He wants to see what he can and can't do and what he has to get better at. And I think, we've seen a lot of inconsistencies with him, but I can even say that the reason why Ricky Pearsall is even here is the exact reason why you want Brandon Ayuk back. Now, Pearsall is not Ayuk, but a lot of the same similarities in play style and play strength. So, yes, getting Ayuk back will make this roster so much better. Everyone kind of falls into their slot, into their place, and it forms this, perfect picture of an offense. So, I agree. Khalil Young, which goes up to your next question, which was, I've heard Dominick Puni continues to impress. Could he push for that starting right guard spot? I'll even go further than asking the question, can he push for the starting right guard spot. I will say, through 9 practices so far in 10 total days, Dominick Puni might have a firm grasp on the starting right guard position. Remember, while Spencer Burford's hurt, who he was getting the majority of the right guard first team reps, Dominick Puni, even with Jon Feliciano being back, has not relinquished any reps at right guard. And Feliciano started at right guard last year, the majority of the season and in the Super Bowl. So you can question why Feliciano is not back there. I think it's just they want to see him at center. They like him a lot. They know what he can do. He's guaranteed a roster spot for sure. But I think Dominick Puni has had a really, really strong camp. He's young. Chris Forrester kind of gushed about him. He told a story today that after Puni got drafted, he called the team up and said, I want every install meeting video you guys have with Chris Forrester talking to the offense, Kyle Shanahan talking to the offense and the offensive line. He wanted to get a jump start on things before even coming to camp. When they got to camp, Chris Forrester, the offensive line coach, said Dominick Puni had everything memorized. Dominick Puni walked onto the field day one, a student of the game, but also ready to take somebody's job. And I think with Burford going down and the Feliciano being hurt early in training camp with the knee injury, Dominick Puni has asserted himself as, right now at least, the starting right guard of the San Francisco 49ers. He was really good in 1v1s today. He had a phenomenal rep against Malik Collins. Collins, who has been, 5 to 8 year vet in the NFL, been a handful of teams, excellent career so far. Collins tried the spin move. Puni moved the feet, reset his base, and slowed Collins down again. He's picked up blitzes extremely well. And I think, what Puni has showed is that, the moment's not too big for him. And I think, he's a fast learner. He's really smart. But again, you can be a fast learner. Trey Lance was a fast learner mentally, but it just couldn't translate to the field. Dominick Puni, and again, it's no knock on Trey, don't take it as that, but Dominick Puni, fast learner, got the playbook, wanted the videos, and I think, he's taken that in stride, and, he wasn't expected to get first-team reps, or if he was going to, very minimal first-team reps, might start a preseason game, but I think the expectation was Burford would be the first-team right guard while Feliciano worked at center because they want him to be the backup, maybe even start the year. But I think once Burford went down, it was like, all right, kid, let's see what you got. And he's kind of not looked back. I mean, he has looked stellar. Burford's been fine. Puni has been just, again, stellar. Picking up blitzes against Hargrave and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Malik Collins. Like, he's facing the best guys on one of the best defenses in football, and arguably, the best one of the best interior defensive tackles in Hargrave in all of football, and he's held up a lot. So, really good things to see. The hand placement's there, the footwork is there. Of course, he has to get better. He's a rookie, but I think it's a really, really good sign. And of course, Khalil Young likes that, so that will be huge. We need to solidify the right side of the offensive line. Let's effing go. Again, I want to get your name right. It's Kawachipto, I'm hoping. I hope that's right. Maybe it's Kawachipto. Either way, thank you so much for commenting. They say, we need Jon Feliciano at center too. Brenda won't be healthy enough for a full season. I've talked about this a handful of times. I truly believe the best offensive line for the Niners is Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Dominick Puni, Colton McKivitz. Now, you'd, in a perfect world, hope that Puni be the right tackle, whereas Feliciano be your starting right guard. But in this current world, that's your starting 5. Trent, Banks, Brendel, Puni, and McKivitz, while Burford, I think, should take some reps at right tackle. He hasn't so far. He's been hurt, obviously, the last few practices. But if he can kind of be your right guard, right tackle, you can keep a Chris Hubbard or Jalen Moore or Brandon Parker, whoever you choose of that grouping. But I think, You want Burford to kind of be that roaming right guard, right tackle. Feliciano gets to be your backup center and right guard. Ben Barch is kind of your backup left guard and third center in case of emergency. And Jalen Moore becomes your left tackle as a backup. So I think, you're right. You're right. Feliciano being a backup gives you so much more depth. And go back to last year. Feliciano's value leaving training camp in the preseason was as a bench depth option because they weren't sure what Brendel or Burford how long they'd hold up. Burford struggles, Feliciano steps in, the offensive lines improves, a couple of rankings, right? And I think, that's the best fit for him. If someone struggles, you have good old John Feliciano behind him ready to go to pick things up. So I would agree with you that yes, Feliciano being a backup certainly helps. Jalen Moore, pretty good today, pretty good overall in training camp. Chris Forrester mentioned that he's really impressed by him. He's grown a lot. He's a much better pass protector than run blocker, which Forrester admits it's mainly because of his build. He's a bigger guy, can't get too low, and he's not that fast. But today, in 1v1s, held up against Nick Bosa. Won the rep against Nick Bosa. Doesn't happen. He's done it twice in the last, 3 practices. Pretty good for Jalen Moore. Moving to tight ends. Again, rough day yesterday for Cam Latu. Like a really rough day. Didn't practice today. Braden Willis, though, had a really good practice. Did really good in 1v1s. Yesterday had an excellent block to free up some space for the ball carrier. Whereas today, finished practice with a 20-yard sideline diving catch from Brandon Allen. That's what you want to see. Whether he's tight end 2 or tight end 3, where Latu's kind of in between on the fence, kind of trying to figure out what his strengths are and who he is in the offense and mentally trying to process stuff, Braden Willis is actually showing the steps you want Cam Latu to show in year number 2. And sure, he was healthy all year and got the reps. That's fine. I totally get it. But got to win now. Willis can actually help you win now. Again, as a backup for sure, but ultimately, he has proven to be good enough to make the roster. I still believing it's Kittle, Saubert, Willis, Latu's a practice squad player, and you go from there. That feels like that's kind of the lock right now, unless something insane changes. But Willis, back-to-back good days. Robert Beal Jr. had a would-be sack today on the defensive line. Yetur Gross-Matos had a strong day in 1v1s. And I think, when you see a player has a good day, and mainly on defense, and they don't have a sack, it makes people go, well, what do you mean? And I think one issue San Francisco had towards the end of the season, and really throughout the entirety of the year, but primarily towards the end against the Lions and the Packers, was setting the edge. You set the edge, you force the ball carrier back into the tackles, the defensive tackles, your linebackers, your safeties, and it keeps everything inside. It limits how many yards they can get and how much space they have to run. San Francisco, towards the end of the year, never really set the edges very well. And that goes from Nick Bosa to Chase Young to Gregory to Drake Jackson early in the year and many other people. So it was a struggle. But Yetur Gross-Matos today was really good at setting the edge, forcing guys back inside, allowing Hargrave and Collins and many others to kind of wrap up the tackler. Jordan Elliott had a strong day today. So I think, one thing, well, yes, the name value's not there. The sack totals might not be there. Just doing the simple things right as an edge rusher, setting the edge goes a long way to helping your run defense improve. Allowing guys like Hargrave and, Collins and Jordan Elliott, who today was phenomenal. Jordan Elliott dominated Nick Zakelj in 1v1s. He had 3 sacks on the day, 1 on Brock Purdy, 2 on Brandon Allen, and also, yes, was in the backfield, disrupting the run game. He is brought in to be a run defender. He's doing that at a incredible rate, but also he's forcing penalties, forcing false starts, and he's racking together back-to-back-to-back good plays. Again, 3 sacks, and after one of his sacks, he gets a false start on the offense. Then the next play gets a pressure and forces the quarterback to throw the ball away. And it's like, yes, like this is what we've needed since DJ Jones has been, in Denver. You let him walk for a good reason. He wanted a lot of money and deserved it. But Jordan Elliott, through training camp and mainly today, was stellar at run defense, forcing pressures, getting sacks, and just telling Nick Zakelj and Ben Bartch, look, I don't know who you guys are, but you're backups for a reason. And Jordan Elliott will be a massive part of this defensive line. This team is relying on him a ton to be the main run stopper. Collins and Hargrave are, pass rushing defensive tackles who, yes, can do some run defense things, but, Jordan Elliott will be this team's primary interior defensive tackle against the run, and they need him big time. And today it was a good example of what he can do against the run and also against the pass. Nick Bosa, Defensive Player of the Year talent. There was a rep today where he had Colton McKivitz so turned around and confused. You've seen that picture on X or Twitter of Mike McGlinchey like up in the air sideways because I think it was Aaron Donald. While it wasn't that bad, Nick Bosa had Colton McKivitz so turned around that they were both in the face of the quarterback when the play was over. It was like, holy crap. Like, it was left, right, boom. It was like, McKivitz, are you now an edge rusher as well? Because you just got twisted and turned like a freaking boppet out there because Nick Bosa is so good. But it was like, whoa. Obviously, great stuff by Nick Bosa. Leonard Floyd, his now counterpart, he has had a phenomenal training camp. And it's funny because we've gushed about his ability to stay healthy throughout his career. And there's been 2 training camp days so far where he's gotten injured early. The first day of training camp, he got hurt and came back later in the day and was fine. Today, the exact same thing. Limped off the field, went and saw a trainer, came back out there and had a very productive day. Super disruptive, had a handful of would-be sacks during team drills, and also, like Yetur Gross-Matos, while setting good edges, also providing something this team hasn't had since Dee Ford, a speed rusher. His motor just does not stop, and yes, that's a lot of what his sack totals are, just not stopping. But ultimately, it's having a speed rusher to force guys back inside, getting off the line quickly so that edge is set. The running back or the quarterback or the receiver on the end around goes, I can't go out there. And it forces them back inside. Like today, he forced Brock Purdy into the pocket further and Hargrave got a sack. Like that's stuff this team has not had for a while. And that's really good to see from Leonard Floyd, who had a really good camp. The secondary, again, Jair Brown had 2 picks. George Odom talked about Malik Mustafa in his post-practice press conference and said, you seen the highlight tape. I mean, this kid, I watched it too, essentially. It was like, go watch the highlight tape. I watch it every single day. That's how good Mustafa has been. But the primary takeaway, which was the exact same thing yesterday, was Deommodore Lenoir had, again, for like the 19th time, the best camp so far. He's been just phenomenal. Today, despite giving up a handful of catches, sometimes you just get beat. Sometimes you do everything in your power and you still lose. And sometimes you're in the right position with the right hand placement, with the right footwork, and you are stride by stride with somebody. And it's like they just made a better play and I was in the perfect place at the right time, just couldn't get the ball. That was Lenoir today, where he was stride by stride with Deebo, stuffed a run by Deebo Samuel, had his hands on balls, just great catches by Chris Conley and Deebo Samuel and many others. Like Lenoir, for allowing catches, he was still great in coverage, fleecing or, all over receivers. And this, again, while not being, this PBU monster or getting interceptions, he was, making the receiver's life tough every single rep. And again, even though he lost some reps, if you want to call them losses, it was definitely teaching tape of this is what you want to do. Yes, you lost, but this is what you want to do every single rep, which, yes, Khalil Young, the secondary, I think, with Mooney Ward, who was really good in 1v1s today, Jair Brown coming into his own. Mustafa, being more hit than miss in his first training camp as a rookie, and then Lenore being phenomenal, and even Yadam being stellar so far in his first training camp with San Francisco. Yes, the secondary, I think, has actually improved this year, which is good to see. Really good to see. Trent Taylor and Ronnie Bell and Ricky Pearsall all worked as punt returners today. There wasn't much to say from Ronnie Bell, but had a solid day, kind of like Chris Conley, and mainly more like Braden Willis yesterday, where he didn't catch many balls, but if you block, you're going to get the ball. If you block, it goes a long way into solidifying a roster spot for yourself. Ronnie Bell today didn't catch, I don't think, really any balls. If he did, only a couple, but had a really nice block on Samuel Womack that, again, sprung Jordan Mason for a big game. So kind of a smaller day, but man. Good stuff from both sides of the ball. And even Jake Moody, he missed 2 kicks yesterday, missed 1 2 days ago, got back to his perfect ways, 3 for 3. He missed 2 50-yard plus field goals yesterday, made 2 50-yard field goals today, and he's 27 for 30. So as soon as you start to get a little, what Jake's Moody gonna, he's starting to struggle. Here comes the yips. He brings things back and focuses us again, and again keeps making me eat my bold prediction of a new kicker being brought in to have a competition with him. But a good day from Jake Moody, and all around probably the best practice so far at training camp. Is a good day. Offensive line, quarterbacks, receivers. I mean, just defensive line, edge rushers, cornerbacks. Was a really, really strong day. Jake Moody kind of rounding things out. When we're talking from Deebo, Pearsall, Jennings, Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, Braden Willis, Dominick Puni, Jalen Moore, we're talking everybody had a productive practice. We do have a comment here by Rob Smith. Always good to see and hear from you, Rob. Says, I just stumbled across a site that said the New York Giants leaked their draft rankings this year, and they had Pearsall at the 21st best player and one of the few players highlighted for having great character. I think that site is referencing Hard Knocks. A comment following you up here, Rob, says he was given the gold helmet equivalent by them, looking at their board on Hard Knocks. Yeah, so what you saw, Rob, was a screenshot of what the New York Giants allowed Max or HBO to film during Hard Knocks, which was incredible insight. There's a reason why they'll never be here in San Francisco or Santa Clara at Levi Stadium, because Shanahan's never letting those things and those cameras getting that much access. But it was mainly a Hard Knocks thing. Their draft board was leaked essentially. And yeah, I'm someone that has said from the beginning that Ricky Pearsall, I get it. Not the name value you wanted, wasn't a right tackle, wasn't a cornerback. I totally get it. But fans are going to come around to Ricky Pearsall being a stellar player. If you don't believe me, go back and listen to me during the mock drafts and the scouting report. I talk about all these things Pearsall can do. And we were talking about Pearsall a month before he even got picked, of how he'd be the perfect receiver for this offense. We had him going in the second round, but overall, just a really great player that I think many fans didn't expect. But once they grow to know him and see him play, they are going to be shockingly surprised how good he is. And they're going to realize and start to understand the justification of picking him at 31 overall. But yes, I think it was him. And I think it was Renardo Green. And if it wasn't Green, it was Malik Mustafa, who both kind of got the, gold, helmet equivalent of being a great leader and a great person. So San Francisco got, not just their guys, but got other teams great leaders and good players, guys. So I think it would really, really goes into show that, the Niners, I think, did ace this draft. Obviously, Grendo has to hit and Puni has to hit, and everyone has to hit. But Puni's been playing well. Green's been learning a lot in his first training camp. Mustafa has shined a lot, and Pearsall, has definitely flashed a ton. John Nevels says, what will Kyle and company do to counter teams when they try to spy on Brock? Well, I will say this. If you want to have a counter spy organization, you go contact Bill Belichick again. He knows the ins and outs of how to spy on teams. So maybe Kyle was trying to do a little more than just hire Belichick as a defensive coordinator. He was trying to hire the anti-spy gate for his offense because, you know, I don't think too many teams will spy on Brock Purdy, but I will say this. It is funny to see Dallas Cowboy fans and Raider fans go to Niner training camps. It's like, look, you love football, no hate. We all love football. But like, what are you doing? Like, the Cowboys practice in Southern California. Like, what are we doing? Like, you can go to SoCal and watch them practice. It's weird. The Raiders are just in Vegas. You go watch them practice. It's like, you know, the drive and the flight is not that far, but, you know, they've been rightfully getting booed. Jim Everett says the Niners are old and expensive. They certainly are expensive. Not that old. Purdy's like 25, 24. Deebo's 28. Ayuk's like 26. Pearsall, I think, is 23. Like, not that old, my friend. Also here from Jim Everett, Purdy's interception crisis, major concerns for a regressed, mediocre QB. I'm just going to leave that there. Like, man. Okay. You're day drinking on a Saturday, Rob. Jim, I can tell you. You're having yourself a day. Kenny Niners says, I used to be the only person in here in the chat. What exactly happened, Sterling? How did you get all these people in the chat? Well, I'll tell you what, Kenny, we're growing, and I'm so grateful for it, for guys like Jim Everett, who hates Brock Purdy. I think it's Cabocito. I hope that's right. Rob Smith, Lori Matthews is usually in here, Bobo, Khalil Young, JD Durham, Robbie439. We're growing. It's awesome. We got 1K, and everyone was like, I want to go to that channel. And you know what? It really, really appreciate it. It is, again, it warms my heart. And again, I thank you guys so much. You're spending your time watching me talk about a favorite team that you have. And again, I really appreciate it. I go to sleep at night with a big smile over my face because it's like, man, this is just awesome. Yes, Kenny, over 1,000. It's awesome to see. Again, it's all you guys. It's not me. I just jibber jabber and talk. You guys do all the hard work and actually watch the video. So thank you guys so much. Bobo here has a super chat again. Bobo, whenever people give money, it just, again, like the followers and the subscribers do, thank you so much. It's hard-earned money on your end, and I really appreciate it from you guys. I'm never going to ask for money, but I thank you so much when you do. And they say, I believe we'll have a top 3 offense and a top 5 defense. Bobo, I put this on Twitter yesterday. Maybe John Neville saw it, who's been on Twitter. John, I see you. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the love and the Twitter follow. It's awesome to see. I really appreciate it. Bobo says, again, we're going to have a top 3 offense and a top 5 defense. I will say this. Last year on 95.7 The Game, I was on the Morning Roast reporting live from training camp, and I said this Niners team could average 35 points per game. They averaged 28. They then drafted 2 receivers, an offensive lineman, and a running back. I will now restate my claim. This team should average over 30 points a game and lead the entire league in scoring, meaning they should have a top 3 offense, if not the best offense in football. You have the reigning offensive player of the year. Ayuk is essentially a Pro Bowl All-Pro talent, was just snubbed this year. You have the Hall of Fame left tackle. You have an All-Pro tight end. You have Deebo Samuel, a former All-Pro. You have a quarterback who was nearly the MVP last year. If you're not a top 3 offense, something terribly went wrong. The defensive side of things, I have some questions. Not because the talent's not there, just because I want to know who's playing that third linebacker spot. That's a big question mark for me. Even Devondre Campbell, you know, what are you going to get out of him? There's high hopes for sure, but still. And you're right, Rob, the best fullback in football. The best one by far. You're right. Kyle Juice deserves his credit as well. But there are some more questions on defense than offense. You know, the defensive line, the depth is a little bit of a question mark. Who's going to be that edge rusher? You know, Drake Jackson's now hurt. Again, third and second linebacker, who is that guy? Secondary, though, aren't too many questions, which is good to see. But I think we are going to at least see a top 3 offense and a top 10 defense. And when you have a top 10 defense, I'll even say a top 8 defense. When you can do that, likely means you're going to go far and likely, hopefully, make the Super Bowl. That's the hope. That's the plan. Rob Smith says here, super excited for the season. It's a great feeling, Sterling. You're right, Rob. You're right. I just can't wait for the year. First game, preseason, next Saturday. It's going to be awesome. Going to be awesome. Jim Everett the Great says, congratulations. I'm assuming about the 1K. Thank you so much. Kenny says, I predict we break the INT record. I won't go that far, but last year, I think until week 6 or 8, we were leading the entire NFL in interceptions. It was a great beginning to the year last year. And then again, Kawachipto says, trade a CB for an edge at the cutoff. I've already predicted that. I think we're going to trade Ambry Thomas for an edge player or a defensive tackle. It needs to happen. It really needs to happen. Or they're going to trade him for picks and then sign an edge rusher. It needs to happen. There's so much smoke around Matthew Judon. Who knows? Once guys get cut, once promising players play down, it opens up so many doors, and this team has been so unafraid to make preseason moves. But again, we're not even towards week 1 of the preseason against the Titans, but I cannot wait next Saturday. I have to go to a friend's house for dinner, but I want to say thank you to Kenny, Kawachipto, Rob Smith, Jim Everett the Great, John Nevels, Bobo for the super chat. Just awesome stuff. Khalil Young, Leon Sandcastle, JD Durham, Rob49. You guys make all this happen. And even Tribe, who says Everett is better than Brenton Jones. I'll leave it there. You can make of that what you will in the comments below. If you can, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast platforms. Give us a 5-star review. Tell us anything you want in the comments below, but give us a 5-star review. If you could also, like John Nevels already did, follow us on Twitter or X at 49ers_access. Go on the Instagram, 49ers.access, and follow those. Just put up our brand new NFL Top 100 announcement. McCaffrey and Trent and Kittle and Bosa and Purdy and Deebo and Ayuk and Greenlaw. 9 players. We have the best roster in football. Go see the graphic. Go like the picture. And thank you guys so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you want to see your Niners play this year, go to SeatGeek.com. Find the game you want to go to. Maybe you want to see Frank Gore go into the Team Hall of Fame in Week 1 against the Jets. Go on SeatGeek.com, find your tickets, find the pricing you like, and then in the promo code section, use promo code 49ersaccess. 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Again, thank you so much for watching, listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And in fact, until tomorrow, stay faithful.